soon as the Unique Digital team sits down, we'll go ahead and get started. Today we're going to talk a little bit about VSPEX Blue and hyperconvergence and what that means to you. We started about 30 years ago in oil and gas specifically. We've been an EMC partner for about 13 years now, and we really focus specifically on the EMC portfolio. We actually brought Isilon and Data Domain on prior to them being acquired by EMC. Our founder somehow is prescient about what's coming down the pipe, and he immediately acquires those products. So, across the state of Texas, we have 4 locations. We have an office in San Antonio, in Austin, in Houston, and then here in Dallas. Our Houston office serves as our corporate headquarters, and we have a very large lab, very big footprint there as well. We'll talk some more about that lab here in a second. So we're a solutions-focused company, and I want to talk a little bit kind of how we approach the solutions that we provide. It's not really about the next cool widget or the next whiz-bang feature, but really about how we're going to bring that to you and how we're going to fix your business outcomes, because that's, at the end of the day, what we're really all about, right? Making some more money for ourselves. So the way we start out is with an assessment of your existing infrastructure. We want to come in and look at and see what you have. Analyze the strengths, analyze the weaknesses, work with you collaboratively to understand what that is. We have a number of tools that we can use to do that, and we usually put our engineering resources close to you so that they can help with this process. From that information, we want to turn around and create a design of the solution that we're going to propose to you that makes sense for the business needs. And again, this is a collaborative process. We want to educate you throughout so that you're able to participate in the process of creating this design, because ultimately it's your design. Beyond that, we want to step in and help you get it implemented to the degree that you need us to help you. I know a lot of y'all are very bright and know how to do many of the things that we're talking about here. There's some hecklers that I think may not be as strong and probably need a little bit of help sometimes. So for those folks, we're going to help all the way from turnkey solutions to just quick starts. It really just depends on what you need. And then once we put a solution in place for you, we don't want to just leave you high and dry. We want to actually take the time to do some knowledge transfer and help you understand what it is that you just purchased, and more importantly, how to use that to achieve those business outcomes that we had talked about previous. So education becomes a big part of the solution as well. Once you're smart, then we can kind of look at some of the other things in our portfolio. And these are really our strengths. If you look at what we provide, really data center wall to data center wall, so everything in between and inside. But we specifically focus on a few things. I already mentioned that we're an EMC partner, so as you can imagine, storage is going to be something that's very important to us. And that's something that's important to you. Storage is ever-changing, correct? There's all kinds of new things, flash, hyperconvergence, like we're going to talk about today. Scale out, scale up, scale down, legacy. There's all kinds of buzzwords we can use. We have the expertise there to help you understand what those buzzwords mean and which ones are important. Once you have your storage infrastructure in place, you're going to need to do something with it. I don't know, there's this cool thing called virtualization I've heard about recently. Maybe we should put some of that on there. How many of y'all are virtualized? Should be everyone. Thank you. There's more than just running a hypervisor, though. There's a lot about automation and the ability to do self-service catalogs that come along with virtualization. We can help with that. I built this nice infrastructure. I want to make sure that I don't break it, so I need to protect it, and that's where our data protection solutions come into play. So we want to make sure you have an efficient and effective backup and recovery solution that's tailored to the specific applications that you're using day to day, not just a generic appliance or application. I think it's also important to note that data needs to be tiered appropriately. Not all data is suited to be backed up. A lot of your data is suited to be archived. You can't get rid of it because all of that data is worth money, right? Your business now realizes that everything they've collected over the years is worth money to them. But they're not sure how to milk that money out yet. So while they're waiting to figure that out, let's archive that stuff off. And day to day, you need to make sure that you're going to continue running, and business continuity becomes important. So for your most critical apps, you want to make sure they never go down, and that you're just always online. Active data centers and all kinds of fun stuff that comes along with that. We can help with that side as well. So this is an example of some of the value that we provided a customer. This was a large, obviously, data domain purchase, and this is what showed up at our warehouse in Houston. Imagine it showing up at your data center. How would that guy like to have seen those boxes show up? Think of all the cardboard that you have to throw away alone. So what we were able to do is come in, unpack, rack, stack, prepare, set up, and turn all those boxes into this. And this is what actually showed up at that data center floor instead of what you saw prior. This was all pre-IP'd. It had all of the login information already set. So when we arrived at their data center, we literally slid it into the rack, turned it on, and they connected and immediately started doing backups. That's the turnkey capability of our organization. And part of that is because of our award-winning authorized service network status. We worked with EMC for many, many years. We've won a number of awards for it. And our guys are some of the smarter guys that you're ever going to come across. We have about 16 to 17 engineers across the state of Texas that you guys can leverage as extensions of your own team to help you do those kinds of things. So it's also important to note, I keep talking about Houston, we've got that very large warehouse. We've also got a very, very large lab there. So anything in the EMC portfolio that you hear about, we have a copy of that running. And that is your lab. So if you want to touch, you want to break, you want to fix, you want to play, you want to see, all you have to do is ask, and all of that gear is available to you. We have a demonstration data domain unit out in Fort Worth right now, and since we're talking about vSpecs Blue, we just got our demo unit of that as well. So if you want to see what vSpecs Blue looks like in your infrastructure, just raise your hand and ask, and we'll bring it out to you. And lastly, and I think most important, is that we eat our own dog food. So not only do we have EMC running in our lab, but we're actually running all of our infrastructure on EMC as well. And then, because we're a data center focused company, we have a few other partners that we work with beyond just the EMC folks in the house. So this is just a smattering of some of the other folks we work with. So what we're trying to do here, and you're going to see this term over and over and over again, is redefine simplicity. We're trying to make your lives easier. Long gone are the days of a storage engineer that has to configure a complicated SAN infrastructure and understand what WWNs need to be mapped to whatever they are mapped to. Make sure that all the storage can talk to the host. You really just want to plug something in, turn it on, and get an application running, right? Because that's, at the end of it, after you've done all that complicated stuff, that's what you're trying to provide. So how many people have had these problems in their data center day to day? How many of y'all are being asked to provide budgets right now? This is the show of hands time. A lot of y'all. Do you know how much you need to budget for the next 3 years? No. Do you know if you can scale fast enough? I got to get big all of a sudden. I acquired a company. Can I do that? Do you know the answer to that question? Are you agile enough to even make that change? What if you bring a company in and you have to figure out a way to provide a service that you've never provided for before? Can you manage the multiple components that may come along? Manage multiple vendors? Your CIO, I promise you, is asking you to move to the cloud, I imagine, right? How many people are moving there? How many people want to move there? How many people don't even know what the cloud is? That's Russell, my engineer, over there with his hand up, I think. And then most importantly, how do I keep my stuff online? I mean, if I go down, guess who gets the call? Me. 3 o'clock in the morning. It never breaks at noon whenever I'm at my lunch break. It always breaks at 3 in the morning when I'm trying to sleep. So how do I get through this stuff? So this is your typical data center, right? We all have these things. You've got some compute, some memory inside of that compute, some storage to connect to, some kind of a network infrastructure, and then ultimately we have some kind of a management layer that sits on it. So by definition, hyperconverged is taking all of those components and bringing them all together by virtualizing them and sticking them in a nice, pretty chalkboard-shaped box. The goal here is really to simplify the management, define all of that with software. We keep hearing about software-defined everything. And then most importantly, provide a scale-out architecture. Scale-out meaning I can build this out in nodes, and I can just add a node into my existing infrastructure and it automatically grows itself out. Versus scale-up, which is the kind of more legacy approach where I buy a big giant controller that can handle a number of disk trays and I just add those disk trays as I need them. This is a different way of thinking of storage. Now, EMC has a couple of different options when it comes to convergence. If you look all the way on the left there, that's a partner-delivered reference architecture. How many of y'all have heard of FlexPod from NetApp, for example? Show of hands, I see a couple nods. Yep. All that is a piece of paper that says, hey, if you put these 6 components together, they'll work really good, we promise. That's great. If you've got the skill set in-house to do a build-your-own approach, then that's available to you. The next step from that is an engineered solution. So I know all these components work really well together, but I don't have the time to go build them. Can you just bring them to me already built? Sure. You can either call Uni Digital, we'll be happy to help you with that, or you can call our friends at VCE, and they can bring out a vBlock. How many of y'all were at EMC World this year? I know a few of you. I saw a few of you, or at least through one blurry eye, I think that was you. They announced this year the VX Rack. So this is a different kind of scaled up converged infrastructure. It's designed to be web scale, and we're not going to talk about that today, but I'll say the buzzword regardless. And this is for the new third platform stuff. I have an application I need to deploy. I would normally use an Amazon Web Services for that type of a deployment. Why not bring that cloud into my own data center walls? That very first question, that guy that was so sad on the floor, the first thing he had to ask is his budget. And the challenge with the cloud is that your budget's going out to Office 365, or it's going out to Amazon, or it's going out to Azure. And so your ability to take your money that you work so hard to maintain and keep online is all leaving. You bring this inside of your data center, now you get all your budget back. And you get to maintain security and control over your infrastructure yourself. I would rather break it myself than have somebody else break it for me. And then the last thing in the convergence family is our appliances, and that's what we're going to focus on today. These are 2U appliances that scale out node by node and grow just as much as you need them to grow. So let's talk a little bit more about that. This is what it looked like before, right? I've got servers on the bottom, I've got network, I've got some other stuff with plugs and software boxes and CDs, and who put a CD in a computer recently? I don't even think I have a CD drive anywhere around that I can access. Anyway, what we're trying to get to is this concept where everything is simplified. Simplified ordering, you can call this up, it's a single SKU. Simplified configuration, so when you turn the box on and get it running, it's all wizard driven. Simplified management. EMC has wrapped what's called vSpec Blue Manager over the top of the EvoRail vSpec Blue box, so that you don't have to have 16 different consoles to manage from. We want it to be easy to scale, so you can add up to 8 of these nodes, 8 of these appliances into a cluster. And then we want it to be easy to support. One of those other challenges at the beginning was multiple vendors. So if I collapse network, storage, compute, and all of that into a single appliance, now I have one vendor I have to call whenever something breaks. So that's what the goal is. So let's talk about the foundation. At the very beginning, it's built on the software itself, right? This is a software-defined platform. So we talk about vSpec Blue Manager, that's the management interface. The other thing that we added here is what's called Blue Market. I don't have a crystal ball, unlike my founder, so I don't know what's coming down the road. And the Blue Market allows me to be able to add in additional components to this platform as they become relevant. And for you guys, it's literally like going and clicking an add app, and it automatically adds itself to the vSpec infrastructure. The other thing I want to do is build this on the VMware EvoRail engine. So this is VMware's vision, right? They defined what they thought was the perfect appliance and said, you guys go build one of these for me. And we'll give you some really cool software you can install, and we'll run it all under the covers. Who's heard of vSAN? In here. Who's heard of VMware? In here. vCenter? In here. Operations Manager? In here. All the stuff that VMware provides at the top level enterprises is in this box, built in and ready to go. And again, all managed with the Blue Manager. So you don't have to know how to work all those separate components. If I'm going to put everything into a single box, or all my eggs into a single basket, I better build a really strong basket, right? And that's what that resilient cluster architecture is all about. So each one of the appliances is actually 4 independent nodes that are in a cluster. So I can lose a single node in an existing appliance and still be online. And then as I add to my cluster and add more and more nodes, I have even more resiliency. And then I have the normal things I'm used to in VMware, like vMotion and DA, DRS, HA, et cetera, all those things that normally would keep my infrastructure online. And lastly, I want to use this as a software-defined data center building block. So virtualize my storage, virtualize my network, virtualize my management resources, all on one single stack. So here's what the appliance looks like. And if you want to, you can read the specs over there on the right side. It's pretty fancy. I have a CPU, I have memory, I have some storage. It all goes in a server chassis. And it's got some fun disks. If you notice, like I said before, this is actually 4 independent nodes up here. This is the back. that are in a single 2U chassis. So that's pretty impressive to be able to get 4 servers into 2U. And this includes all the VMware licensing that you need, all the other licensing you may need. Sorry, I'm so thirsty. Y'all hanging in there with me? Questions? So here's the real big difference between the two models. There's 2 models. I lied earlier. I'm sorry. There's 2 SKUs. Big and small. Standard performance. The only difference you'll notice is the amount of memory that I have. No, I really screwed it up. So I've got 128 gig in one, I've got 192 in the other. There's some small differences in this configuration as well, but that's about it. The other thing to note is I do have 10 gig connectivity into my infrastructure. How many of you already have your 10 gig infrastructure in place? Good. How many of you do not have your 10 gig infrastructure in place yet? So that's something to consider as we start looking and thinking about vSPEX Blue. So how do I deploy this thing? Well, pretty straightforward. And when I say simple, I mean simple. I used to make a joke about my ex-wife. I realize it's not very nice, so I'm going to leave it out of this presentation, but she can do it. First of all, I plug it in. Literally just plug it into my top-of-rack switch. Second, I'm going to go get that switch and I'm going to configure it. Once I've got it configured, I just power on the appliance. It's going to take care of all the rest. It's going to go out, find itself on the network, and then you're going to go hit the IP for the browser itself. Let's look at some of these screens. So first of all, we're using HTML5, no more Java. Yay! Everybody's excited about that, right? We're going to work with the vCenter client. So I get started, I'm clicking go. What we're really trying to do is keep the user interface clean, and we're just using task automation. So all the things you would normally do to get a vCenter instance stood up and running or get an ESXi host up and running, this is doing for you. And as you're running along, it's validating your information to make sure you're not putting in wrong data. I'm done. Here's my new IP address. Let's go look at it. So, as I said, we're fully automating the configuration itself. I'm going through, I'm doing these steps. I've got vCenter online. I've got vSAN online. I'm completing all the configuration here at the end, and then finally I'm going to go do some cleanup. So again, I'm finished. Let's go access this box. This is an example of over 200 things that the vSPEX Blue automates for you. How long would it take you guys to do all this, you think? Shout out of time. 5 minutes? 2 hours? Half a day? 2 days?
6 days.
6 days. Way to go, Matt. Matt would take 6 days to get this done. No, this would normally consume probably a day of one of your guys' time to get all this set up, right? I was able to unbox and get it racked and turn it on, and in 15 minutes I had access to the system. That's simple. That's the goal. So now I've got it online. Now what do I do? Well, obviously I'm building myself a virtual infrastructure. I'm going to want to provision some virtual machines. So even this is simplified. I already have policies, and they're configured by sizes. We call them t-shirt sizes. So I need a small, medium, or large workload. Let's go get after it. The GUI is already going to tell you how to do this. Here's my size choices. That's what it's going to include. And this is all talking to vCenter in the back end while it's configuring this. So here's the security policy I would like to have applied. I'm going to go out and I made that VM. I'm done. VM's online now. That application owner that just requested that VM has it. Or why don't you give that application owner access to the console and let him do it himself. Once I get it online, I need to watch this box and make sure it's not breaking. So we have the full functionality from the monitoring and the health side of the house too. Again, it's a normal dashboard. All green means good. You start seeing red, things are a problem. We want to make sure that we're getting stats. So we have nice graphs running along showing us what kind of performance we're getting out of the box. And if you need to, you can still get to your vCenter client to really get down under the cover and into the weeds. Some of us all are very familiar with VMware and vCenter, right? The thought of this being ripped out of my hand starts to make me nervous. So you need to know that this is all there still. This is just laying on top of it. So as you're hiring those new guys into your organization, you can give them the easy, simple configuration, and you get to maintain your kind of senior status as you work through it. We talked about the ability to scale out earlier. We literally plug in the appliance if one already exists. The new one says, hey, I see a friend over here. Can I join your cluster? Yeah, sure, come on, buddy. Now he's in your cluster. And we're going to start moving stuff around on the infrastructure automatically. Same thing with patching and updating. You know, we all dread Patch Tuesday. We know VMware puts stuff out every once in a while. So because I'm a cluster, I can just remove my resources from one node, patch it, move them back onto another node, keep going. Very easy to maintain. So as I mentioned earlier, this is VMware's EvoRail. I made a specification, I sent it out, I said, you go build it. I'm not the only one. EMC is not the only one that builds these things. There's a number of other vendors. But I think there's some value that EMC adds that's worth noting, and these are them. Number one, the manager interface itself. Everyone else is just using the default VMware EvoRail manager interface out of the box. EMC's interface is a little friendlier to work with, and it also integrates directly with the hardware. So you get better hardware monitoring. The other thing is you get EMC support. Who has EMC today? And how many of y'all have ESRS configured and calling home to report on the status of your box? It's built in here as well. So it's automatically going to call home and let EMC know that it had a problem and to go ahead and start initiating whatever fix it needs to happen. The other thing that Unique Digital adds as a layer of value is our ability to intercept and be a part of this process for you as well. We also now have Recover Point for your VMs built into the appliance. So now I need to move a VM from one data center to another data center, and I want to replicate that. I'm going to do it natively within the box using the tools that are best at doing that. I also have VDPA. That's VMware's Data Protection Advisor. So now I can do backups of my VMs natively built into the box. Didn't have to buy Veeam. Don't have to go buy another backup solution. I also have something called Cloud Array that comes with the box. Cloud Array allows me to take my workloads and move them in and out of the cloud natively. So I'm going to present storage to my vSpec Blue appliance. I'm going to leverage the cloud to provide that storage. So now I've got that archive workload that I don't want to have in my data center anymore. That's fine, move it out into the cloud. I've got a user file store that nobody's accessed in 2 years. Fine, move that out in the cloud. Let me do my production day-to-day stuff on the box and let the stuff that just needs to sit around and age do that out in the cloud.
How do you do that? SMTP?
The appliance itself is built into the box and it handles the negotiation with your cloud provider. So it depends on who your cloud provider is. So Amazon, Azure, whoever it may be, they're going to be the ones that negotiate that conversation. And then, as I said, because of the fact that we've got this market built into the box, we can extend that down the road and add other features. Maybe you really like backup application ABC. That's fine, we'll just plug it into here so you can keep using what you're used to using. Make sense? Good. So a little bit more about the manager itself. Again, it's a dashboard that's unique to this appliance. It's got the support channel built right in, so I can actually initiate a chat with EMC support right from the manager interface. We're looking at Log Insight to actually provide very deep statistics from a performance perspective. We already talked about the market that's built in, and then the ability for it to reach out to the EMC support and give them access to your box remotely via ESRS. Some screenshots of all that happening there. You don't need to beat this down. Basically, I need help. Okay, I got you. Here's a little more about Recover Point for VMs. I like the fact that I can do granular level recoveries. So I have a file that got corrupted in my VM, no problem, I'll just put that file back. I don't have to restore the entire VM necessarily. It's all automated. I can do remote replication, or I can do local replication. Maybe I have 2 of these appliances in my data center, and I'm going to keep those in sync side by side. Or maybe I need one to go far away, that's fine. We talked about the data protection. Again, this is built on the EMC Avamar technology, the VDPA. So this is already doing the best of the best when it comes to VM data protection. It's built into the box. And then here's the vSpec Blue, and you can see a couple of the vendors that we support. So this is probably one of the vendors you're already working with. So great, these are cool. How do I get one? Why do I need it? Where am I going to use it? I think these are some good starting points for you to think about where this fits into your infrastructure. Obviously, if you've got some VMware, it makes sense, right? But most likely what you're going to do is bring on a new application, or you have a new project, or you're about to go procure some money for something, and what you were going to do is either add a tray of disks to your existing array, buy a couple new servers, and spin it up. Maybe you need to redirect that fund to something like this. and bring that application online in its own infrastructure. Maybe you're trying for the umpteenth time to get a virtual desktop infrastructure running in your organization, and it continues to fail, continues to fail. I don't know if you noticed the specs, but there's Flash in this box too. And guess what makes VDI run really good? Flash. So leverage the speed and the performance this box can provide as well. And then it's also great for remote offices. If you've got a secretary swapping tapes out from the tape drive under her desk in Timbuktu, and now she suddenly needs a file print server and an Active Directory domain controller and all these other components, do you really feel like that's the most logical place to stick something that's complex? No. vSpecs Blue would be a perfect fit for that. Your IT staff can administer remotely. You've got the EMC support organization behind you to help in times of problem. It's all there. And it's newer, so we understand it's probably going to start out in your test and dev environment. But what better way to get your guys that are doing test dev to be self-functioning and leave you alone so you can deal with production issues? So again, we start with the hyperconverged underpinnings. We build it with VMware, vSAN, and other software-defined components on top. Wrap it all up with some software, and that gives us a nice, agile, scalable, and then trusted infrastructure.